there's this cabin in the woods, and this whole family went there,
Oh yeah, I've seen
and
that
they were
movie.
like, and they were like, well, that wasn't a family in the movie; it was friends, but
Yeah, it was friends.
they
Yeah.
went there in the movie,
Oh.
or not the movie, in the actual real life. They went to this cabin, they moved there, and this daughter, she was about 15, 16. She wanted to go to the camper that was like further deep in the woods, and she wanted to stay the night there. So she brought like
It
a
was
lantern
Jackson's
and a
camper.
book and stuff. Yeah, Jackson's camper in the middle of the woods. And she took her lantern and book there, and she also brought her dog Coco. And the dog was pretty strong. Like it was a big dog, and it was an aggressive dog, and like it was a protector dog. And she woke up to the middle of the night of like out of her on her window, like knocking on her window. And she's like, "Oh, it's probably my mom." And she looked out the front window, not the window that got knocked on. And
Stupid.
there and the front window, it was she looked at the house. None of the lights were on. There was no sign of anybody leaving the house, right? She's like, "Oh, weird, but my mom must be walking out here at night." And it was really late at night, and she looked at the window, right? And
Uh-huh.
it was this dark figure walking away, and then it turns around and looks at her. And then now Coco stands up, starts growling and barking and stuff. And she's like scared. She's like, okay, that's not my mom. That's a big
Down
buff
in park.
man. A big buff oily man,
Down
dude.
in park.
And she jumps in her
That's
bed
my
and
favorite
goes,
part.
she goes under the blankets, right? And
Why
she
would you go under the
eventually falls
blanket?
asleep.
I'd
Because
go out
she's
there and fight
scared.
the man. I'd go out there and fight the guy.
And she
Tell
goes
him
under
to
the
get off my
blankets,
lawn.
and she just goes under, right? And then
Yeah.
she she falls asleep and wakes up in the morning. She doesn't tell well, she was normally like a really talkative person, right? And
Uh-huh.
her mom's like, "Oh, what happened at the camper last night? Did you have fun?" And she was just quiet about it. She's like, "Oh, nothing happened," blah, blah, blah. Which I think was dumb. I would have told the mom
Why
right
is she
away.
lying? Why is she lying?
But and then like a couple days later, the little kid, he was only like 3 or 4, but he would normally sleep tight. He would sleep like very good, right? But one night she heard the the, the little kid ran into the mom's room and was like, "Mom, mom," and she's like, "What, honey?"
There's
And
a big black man outside.
no, a monster outside, and she's like, "It's probably just a deer. It's probably just a deer." And then he kept
There's,
doing this for like 4 days, and then
there's the
like
deer man in the woods.
on like the fifth day, it was she felt tapping on her shoulder again, and without even looking at the kid, she was just like, "It's a deer. It's an animal." No response. Tapped again. "Honey, it's a deer." And she turns around. There's no one there. And she like jumps up and turns on the lights. And then she just hears like a loud scream coming from the baby's room. Like that she thought was tapping on him, right? She ran in there and his arm is snapped in half, like completely the other way. And he's screaming and crying and holding it. And she's like, "What happened?"
Goes back.
And all he said was, "The monster got in." They're like, "Okay, we gotta move out of here." But they took like the dad and what was the girl's name? Oh, the same girl that went to the camper at least, right?
Yeah.
And they're walking like the forest, and they saw this completely charred like van. Like it was only like the exterior of it. There was no paint or doors or anything. It was just a charred van that they like caught
Or,
on fire.
or someone just like
And
scrapped it.
no, it was like black. It was like charred. And
Oh.
and there's like baby dolls inside, and there's like stuffed animals inside. So like this is weird. And they were getting an Uber ride to the
Of course they're
hospital.
taking Uber. Of
No, because their
course.
car broke down, so they're taking an Uber ride to the hospital for the
Oh,
little kid,
heck.
right?
Yeah.
And the Uber is like, "Oh, where do you guys live?" Or I mean, no, they went to their house. So they're like, "Oh, you know the history of where you live, right?" And they're like, "No." They're like, "Well, a man kind of like kidnapped a family and put them in a
Oh, okay.
car and charred them, and then he also somehow got into the fire and got charred himself. So supposedly he haunts your house, and that's the
Yeah.
black figure they've been seeing. That's the one that broke his arm too. So
That's cool.
that's basically the story.
Hmm.
That's awesome.
Story time with Colin.